After Hurricane Beryl pushed the boat off its stance, damaging the keel, in the previous videos we repaired the keel on both sides on the outside of the boat. Also, the hurricane smashed the container against the hull of the boat, creating a variety of holes, which we also fixed. The boat is spray painted now, and besides from some small work under the waterline, she's almost ready for painting there too. But this week we're going to repair the inside of the boat.
So the outside it's already fully glassed. Now the inside you see here where I put the filler. So here's the connection between the old and the new. So we have to take out the foam because the foam it's normally until here. So we have a PU foam what we're gonna pour in. It's a closed cell so it cannot be wet. It's all round bubbles so the moist cannot inside. So it's original also like this. It's not a plate of foam like a house ice insulation, but it's like a 2-component foam. This is the other one. Here was only a long crack, but this is not damaged and the side was not damaged, but also here we're gonna cover it extra. Outside is already ready. So that we're gonna do for today.
Partially we're going to put a new foam, so it's making a square to make it easier to put the new foam in. We're then cutting new core to size where the old core was delaminated. Also, we're cutting an angle in the left corner of the Divinycell core pieces and then sand it to a nice rounding so that the fiberglass mat that will go down into the keel and all the way up and over covering this Divinycell core will have a nice rounding to lay upon. Like I explained in earlier videos, the underground of where you're putting a fiberglass mat on needs to be a nice smooth surface, because if there are irregularities like little dents or holes in the surface, the mat will not be able to go in that little dent or hole, and then you get air under the mat. And the whole goal when laying matting is to avoid having air under the mat because it will affect the overall strength of the lamination. Rolf wrote down which sizes of matting he wants where, and then when we know which matting we need for the whole area, we cut all of them in once. Also, the new blocks of the Divinycell core are ready to be glued in. It is time to glue in the new core on the places where it was delaminated with epoxy, hardener and silica. We're using that same mix to make a rounded edge at the bend or curve where there are still unequal spots, to create a bend that over its total length has a good even surface for the matting to stick on. It is time to start cutting matting. First roving, which is 90 degrees matting. On the mat, we write down the size we cut it in. We use a combination of 90 degrees roving and 45 degrees biaxial matting. In earlier videos of the keel repair in this playlist, we have done an extensive explanation why we use the combination of these two matting. But in short, using a combination of 45 and 90 degrees matting makes sure that the end result is able to handle the forces of the ocean, horizontal, vertical and diagonal. Rolf is very organized in his work, which I am not always, but then again, this used to be his actual job for 25 years, building and repairing boats. Then after cutting the roving matting, it is time to cut the biaxial matting. So there's a map of all the matting.
Map.
How it's going to be.
Cryptographic.
Which part is this? The left side? Second.
Yeah, it's one. Part one.
Part one here is here. All the mattings are nicely here. And now Rolf is laying it out. Make sure the shape is good. We're going to start with two layers of roving and 2 layers of biaxial matting first. biaxial, roving. That's one package.
Yeah. And then when we put it in, a second layer comes from 4 layers to cover the floor like original. And then we have 8 layers on the inside, 8 times 600, 4,800 in total.
Gram
the square meter.
Now we're gonna mix normal epoxy and hardener for the matting. Like always, we first make the surface wet with a mix of epoxy and hardener. Then it is time for the first mat to go on, which we then roll in the same mix. Later on, together with Rolf's wife, we will prepare wetting the mats outside of the boat and then bring them wet inside, which will make the process go a lot faster. Then we'll add the second mat, which is roving. We have to cut a little corner off, as when we cut it to size under the boat, we cut it as a square, but there's a through hole in the corner. The roving matting is so hard to cut. There is a roving mat that is easy to cut. It's just not available on this island. Then we'll add the third mat, which is also a roving mat. And then as fourth mat, we add another biaxial mat. After rolling the epoxy in with a mohair roller, we use an air roller or air bleed roller to roll the air out. I've tried to film the whole process of the repair as detailed as possible, but sometimes it wasn't easy because even though it's a big boat, it can still be a small space to be with 2 people in one spot. It's very important to really take the time to roll out all of the air, because that is what defines how strong the end result will be. At the same time, you shouldn't press too hard, because then you're pushing the epoxy out and actually are pushing air back in. I would say the amount of pressure of a medium massage to someone's back, not a painful one, but also not a tickling one. One thing I've been noticing how Rolf does it compared to repairs I've done in the past is that he really spends a lot of time with the air roller, rolling the epoxy even better into the mat and air out of the mat. He's gonna put another piece on that, and as he says, back in the days when he still did professional work in building boats, he was known to always make it do a little bit extra than necessary, make a little bit more strong than necessary.
Then they never come back complaining. Het is niet veel meer moeite, maar het wordt wel sterker.
He says it's not a lot of effort to do one extra, but you are making it a lot stronger. It's enough epoxy resin left with a little mat extra, and it's a waste to throw it away. Might as well put another mat on it. When they put the boat on stands, after they take them out of the water, they usually put the blocks or the stands just in front of the keel. So that is a good point to have very strong. Then we add the next biaxial matting on the next spot, above where we did the core repair. And like we did before, 2 mats of roving over it and impregnate it with epoxy. And then we'll add the 4th layer, a biaxial mat. Because the biaxial mat is quite thick and it's hard to impregnate the whole mat just from adding epoxy on one side, we first put it on one side, then turn it around, stick it on and impregnate it from the other side. The other thing you might have noticed is that the biaxial mat has 2 different sides. The top side, which has the fibers on top, and the bottom, which is where you see the stitching pattern. The top side, where you see the fibers, is the side that sticks best to surfaces. So you'll notice in all the repairs that we do that this top side we always impregnate first and then turn around to stick to the below surface. We move on from being under the actual bed to the hallway or area in front of the bed. All the foam is out of the keel and now we need to sand that whole area before we can put a fiberglass mat against it. One of the most challenging things in this boat repair process I found grinding inside the boat. When grinding white gel coat, the whole boat turns dusty and you can barely see what you're doing. And besides that, like here, when using a grinder in such tight areas, you have to be so careful to not hurt yourself because it's a pretty powerful machine where things can go wrong quite fast. Here Rolf is grinding the edge where the original fiberglass meets the repair we've done from the outside. So he's doing two things at the moment. Number one, I already had in a weekend. I sanded most of it, but there where the foam is out, it still needed to be roughened up before matting will stick to it. And again here, those edges everywhere have to be round.
Yeah, because this is the new and the old part here. So
now both parts are sanded or grinded, however you want to call it, and they're roughened up.
A little bit silica here to make it a little bit smoother on a few places.
Why does it need to be as smooth as possible when you put it before you put a mat on it?
I don't want air inside. If you have a gap between that one because of the height difference and it's not a smooth transition, the cloth, the fiber cloth cannot make a sharp turn. So it will go over the edge and create a void. So if we do a little bit thickened epoxy, it will be fine. It will bond together.
Okay.
As one.
Oh, that's so romantic.
Oh. Hartstikke mooi.
It's time to wetten this surface and make it ready to put new matting. Some things I'm explaining double because I know that there are some people out there watching this video who, like me, have the dream of buying a cheap hurricane damaged boat one day. So I'm trying to explain it as good as I can so that hopefully these videos help you in doing something like this yourself one day. I'm fast forwarding the laying of matting here because we do the exact same thing as we did before. First a biaxial mat that we wetted on the side where the fibers are, as that's the sticky side. Then turn it around and stick it to below surface. Then add more epoxy over it. Roll it in with the mohair roller. And then roll it in more and at the same time roll the air out with the air roller. And then add a layer of roving mat. Do the whole rolling epoxy in and air out process again. Then add another roving mat, do the epoxy rolling process again. Then add another biaxial mat where first we wetted the side where the fiber is on top. I did not film that here. Then turn it around, stick it on the roving and wet it and impregnate it from the other side. I think you get it by now, so I won't explain it another time. Then we wet the other side in epoxy. On the left side, or bottom side from the camera's point of view now, where we just put the 4 mats, there was only a crack after the keel had folded double, so we overlaid the new matting on the inside over where the crack once was. Then we put the first mat on the other side. Again here, we want the fiber first to go against the repair. Here you can see pretty well where the repair was that we did from the outside. So we want from the inside the mat to cover the whole repair, going at least 3 to 5 inches under and over the repair. This was the best I could film it, as you see overlapping under and over it. Well, the top you can't really see. Same process as before, rolling it in with a mohair roller, then rolling the air out, then the same with the two roving mats, ending with another biaxial mat. I didn't film putting all 4 mats here, but by now you know how we did it. Then we continue cutting more matting for the next time when the matting is dry. We couldn't always continue doing everything at once, because when you're standing on one side, repairing the other side, then you have no place to stand anymore, because you can't turn around, because then you would be standing in the wet epoxy of the repair you just did. So we wait till it's dry. We're going a couple hours back in time because I need to show you something else. When I was grinding here, one of that one broke, and this is made out of wood, and I'm gonna make one now out of the Vinycell. I don't want to make one again out of wood, because you know, every time I do something to the boat, I want to make it a little better. This is the shape, and we're going to put on 2 layers of biaxial matting. I'm going to make a new floor support. In this boat, these floor supports are not structural. They were made out of wood. I am making a new one with PVC foam, the Vinycell. Wood can suck up moist, and PVC foam won't. Also, PVC foam with fiberglass matting on both sides is super lightweight. PVC foam is not strong out of itself, but after adding 2 layers of fiberglass on both sides, making it a sandwich construction, it will be extremely strong. I'm putting 2 layers of biaxial matting on both sides. First going to put on a little bit of thickened epoxy and silica, just so that the resin will not, pure resin when I put a mat on, will not suck into the Vinycell. Let me show you one more time in close up which is the side that has the fiber and which is the other side. So I'm gonna do one. First make this side wet, put it on, make it wet, and then do this one the opposite. First make this side wet, put it on. I then continue with a normal mix of epoxy and hardener. Then I put on the second layer. It's just a small surface, so I don't use a mohair roller here, just a brush, and then an air roller to impregnate the epoxy even better and roll the air out. Perfect, and now just wait till this side dries, turn it around to the other side. This has dried up nicely, time to do the other side. Same thing here, adding a first layer of epoxy, hardener and silica over the Vinycell. And now I make a mix of normal epoxy and resin. There's a lot of mosquitoes here, and one came into the epoxy, so one mosquito will be forever in the boat. Again, this side will go first, because this is the sticky side. I will keep dancing for the mosquitoes. Ready? I'm gonna pause here to take a moment to thank all of you guys for watching, and as always a special thanks to all of the patrons. It's really because of all of the patrons that I can make these videos. And the upper tier patrons are on the wall of the boat. Thank you guys. Now we can stand on the dry matting. We can do the other side. We are back working under the bed here in the area where we started laying matting in the beginning of the video. We roll a lot longer as what you see here, of course, because otherwise this video might become a bit boring to watch. But once you've done it a couple times, you'll see the color of the mat changing to a nice impregnated mat once you rolled enough. The only challenge with this I find is that It does also matter what is below the mat, because if there is a mix of epoxy and silica under parts of the mat, which is white, it might look like that the mat there is not impregnated yet, but in reality it is. It just looks a little different because of the underlying color. So we were working here under the bed and now here in the hallway. Like we did before, again adding 4 layers of matting the same way. Don't underestimate the time the pre-work costs. Much of the pre-work we did in the first videos of this playlist, where we opened the floor up to see what the actual damage was. And besides that, there were definitely several hours of grinding away the gel coat here. Then we lay 4 mats on the other side. We lay the fiberglass mats on both sides against the floor supports, and under the floor supports we overlap the matting that we're putting in now. Here we are back in the bedroom, under the bedroom actually, and by now the matting on the left side has dried, so we can stand on that and put matting on this side. Then we add the last 4 layers of matting to the one spot where we hadn't put matting under the bed yet. As you can see, like we do it everywhere else, this matting is overlapping the matting next to it. And Rolf has a bit of epoxy left over and adds one more tiny mat there in the middle. If you know Rolf, you know that he doesn't like to waste epoxy and also always wants to make it just a bit stronger than necessary. And it's cutting time again. The opening into the keel that you see on the right here, there used to be a mat on top of it. We had grinded that away before we fixed the outside of the keel. You can see that in the first few videos in this playlist. But we hadn't gone all the way to the bathroom area yet, because that wasn't necessary for fixing the outside of the boat. This fiberglass mat that still lies on top of the last bit of the keel on the left side here still had some delamination. So we need to continue cutting until there is no delaminated fiberglass anymore. What I mean with that is grinding until there is no fiberglass anymore that's loose from the underground, the core. These areas would have been a lot easier to access by cutting out the floor here too, but besides that, then you also have to glue it back in later. The floor part under the stairs connects to the bulkhead where the main blade is, where the rigging is connected, so we prefer not to cut the floor out under the stairs. Here you can see the balsa core, which is part of the sandwich construction. On the other side of this balsa core is the outer laying of matting on the outside of the boat. What are we doing?
Checking how thick the laminate is and what's broken. It's already repaired from the outside. We're going to check, but it's dry and this piece was separate, but here it was still tight. So you see, because of the impact, some pieces are not attached anymore. So we're going to glue in new this area.
This is the last part of the keel to check for delamination.
Yeah.
So, as you've seen here, very beautiful. The first layers of matting are on. And next is going to be this part. And here we still have to check how far the delamination goes. As we talked about many times in this and the previous videos, the hull of this boat is a sandwich construction, which is like the floor support plate I made earlier. a core, in this case balsa, then on both sides fiberglass matting. That construction we call a sandwich and makes it extremely strong, until that sandwich is not intact anymore because fiberglass on one side of the core is loose from the core, which we call delamination. And then the construction loses a part of its design strength and has to be brought back to a functional sandwich construction again, which is what we're doing here. It's getting harder to get to the area where we need to be, and to be really certain we decided anyway to go cut out the floor of the bathroom.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't want to do it, but I have to do it. I'm sorry. It is too much a risk.
So the keel actually goes in a little bit of a shape. So it goes...
Yeah, it goes to the side. That's
like
the problem.
this. So, and then if you look over here, like here it is, there's a gap, but this was never stuck. You see how it's dirty here?
It's not from the grinding, it's really how they made it. They make a separate floor over it. But it's better we take it out and make it totally new. So we cut it, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, so we're not even entirely sure if it's really necessary to actually do this, but let's do it anyway. We have 1.5 more weeks and then we're splashing. The date is set, so this is gonna all be finished this week, and then next week splashing. It's ready. One thing I never knew is that those filters are the secondary filters. When I was given this air mask, they were not on it, and they're separate because the first filter box is actually for fumes and the second filter is for dust. So I was excitingly exposed to all the fiberglass that I've been sanding in the beginning. So if you're using this, do make sure you have the first filter box, and then take it off, and then this one on top of it. Okay, I'm gonna need to put it on now because the floor is going out.
Woohoo! Excited!
I'm so excited! Doing this kind of work, grinding fiberglass in a small compartment in the Caribbean heat, is like going to a luxury spa, only then for free, because basically it's a free sauna, and on top of that, after being in fiberglass all day, the fiberglass gets into your skin and you get a free acupuncture treatment at night. People pay serious money for that. What do you want more in life? While Rolf grinds, I am the vacuumer. Yes, I know, you can make a lot of bad jokes about that. I'm starting to think that I inhaled a bit too much epoxy myself. Can you believe that in 1 week the boat will be ready to go into the water? I have my doubts at this moment. Please do not do like I do and do wear protective clothing. Although honestly, I'm really not sure how much a paint suit, which is the T-Vex suits they sell for this work, are actually helping when you're in such a tight space and fiberglass dust. I just couldn't handle the heat in that area anymore. If I ever do a project like this again, I hope I have the money to rent an Airbnb instead of sleeping in the same area. Now we've come to the solid point where everything is still stuck, so where it is not delaminated anymore. So this is the end of the damage. And here, this is actually the end that they put core. Here they stop with core, and this is just filler material. So that's not even strong, is it?
Yeah, it's strong.
It is?
If it's encapsulated, it's strong because it has a lot of compression strength, but it's more to fill and to make a nice bottom, because this they put later on, this piece. First they do this, blah 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 blah, and then they cover it with one big layer.
Until here it is stuck. You can see there's no, you can hear it if you can, but also here you can see it's not loose anymore. This is fully stuck. So this is the end of the damage.
Yahoo!
Woohoo! Then, like you probably already know by now, we need to create a smooth underground layer for the new matting to stick to. So all the gel coat that is still on the surrounding layers of fiberglass, which are still in good shape, needs to be grinded or sanded off. Because fiberglass needs to stick to either core material or other fiberglass or epoxy, like thickened epoxy with silica, but everything else needs to be grinded away, like any gel coat that's still there. To create a nice surface to get this sandwich construction back, we will put in back the core which delaminated, and we will grind the area smooth, and where not possible, fill it up with thickened epoxy, hardener and silica. I then start cutting core that we're going to put in, and here grind a nice edge to it. I don't know if you've ever seen my boat skills a couple of years ago when I just started out boating, but let's just say I've quite improved lately. So this side is all clean, and as you see, here's a nice edge. Here is new core in. This is going to be filled with thickened epoxy, hardener and silica. That's apart. New core. The side of the core with a grinder already made in an angle, so that the matting can lay over it.
Beautiful set, beautiful.
So it has to be in a nice, I don't know what the name is, angle.
Smooth transition.
Smooth transition, yeah.
Like this.
So everything here, basically what we did here by opening everything up is continuing until there was no delamination anymore, meaning until everything, like that whole part, is still stuck to the bottom. So everything that was delaminated, meaning loose from the plate under it, we grind it off, we took out. So that is where the damage ended. And now here we're basically creating a new sandwich again. Sandwich that all the layers are stuck to each other again. That is what makes the strength. Today we have extra help. Marianne, wife of Rolf, she's making 4 layers on top of each other, and I'm walking back and forth to Rolf with 4 layers and the paste, the hardener and epoxy. Give it to Rolf, he'll put it on, and I'll come back down and do it next.
Thank you.
So Rolf says which number he wants next. Every stack of matting is numbered. Here you see Mariana wetting and impregnating all 4 layers, and then rolling it up, and then I'm bringing it upstairs. We're gonna do something really exciting. We're gonna put PU foam in the keel.
Yeah, it's a high density PU foam.
PU foam, this is what boat builders use. We then mix the two components together. Not the spray foam.
Nope.
You know why you shouldn't use the spray foam?
Ah, it's not closed cell. This is a closed cell. So this means the water cannot come inside. It's not perfect, but it was like this, so we make it like this again.
It takes 1 minute before it starts. So this is a quart. Actually, it's component A and B, so 2 times a quart, so that's 2 times a liter, so that's 2 liters or half a gallon. We're gonna need a bit more over here, a little bit more on this side, and then the front part. This foam supports the strength of the keel, so it's quite important that those tiny gaps are also filled, which we're doing now. Let me put the camera here. While the PU foam is drying or curing, we continue doing the repair on the other side of the boat, on the inside of the boat, where the big hole once was. I made a nice little plastic cubicle for me so the dust doesn't come in the living room. So all the white that you see there I have to bring back to zero. I'm going to show you a before and after because it's just going to be too dusty and you won't see anything on the camera. So let's do it. I think these are probably the most challenging parts of this process. Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna put you here for the beginning. I'd actually done this grinding like way earlier, but I wanted to put it here because now we're gonna put the matting and then you can like see the repair from beginning to end. But I actually was using the wrong filters on the mask now. It's supposed to have another filter on top of it. I got pretty far yesterday. I got most of it away, but around the edges. Still have to do. That's a little harder all the way around. So drink my coffee. Let's continue. Right guys, let me take you to the danger zone. Well, grind it all the way the sides with the big tool, with the belt sander. I did the edges because you cannot get here with the grinder. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Roloff the Destroyer has arrived.
2 minutes I'm here.
2 minutes.
Yeah, you see there's no, here was never glassing. So the bulkhead comes until here. So from here till here is the actual bulkhead. And that one is not broken. This is actually still very good. Because if you have an impact here and this one is broken, and that's why this one is broken. But the bulkhead stops here, so they filled it up with some glue. And because of the impact, the glue cracked. So we're gonna open it to see. But it's a separate door frame. This is the door frame, nothing more. So we're gonna take all this out, what was broken.
So it probably just had the impact and it just
yeah, because here's a lot of glue, a lot of mass. It's bam, and it separated, but it's not with glass. Here was never glass. You see here the balsa core, the side of the balsa core, and then it's cut. So the actual bulkhead, the structural part, it's only from here till here. And this is glued in and, you know, finished it off. So we're gonna do the same, only here I want to check. But I think it's the same. I think the actual bulkhead is until here. And that's not cracked, that's like perfect.
I then grinded the edge around the core a little better with a grinder, and then it was time for filler. Tiny bit of a gap. We put some epoxy hardener and silica so that there will be no air under it again, like we did with all the other things. And then big matting over it, which will be on the inside 2 roving and 2 biax.
This is it was the damage. And just checking what's this. So this is a bulkhead, but as you can see, it was not glassed. That's why you see now this is more from the impact that it broke loose. But it has, this one has no structural value, not. Okay. This is a door frame only, and it's glued in. You see, this is just a putty on the fiberglass.
Oh yeah,
so
there's no matting here. It's
nothing.
Just
no
body, like it's just a thick layer of glue, basically.
Yeah, just to make a nice round here, that it's nice. And so I want this out like that.
Okay.
And then we're gonna put exactly the same in again, because there's no structural damage behind, because we already checked this one, the main bulkhead, and it's okay. And this one is repaired, so we're gonna glass this in, and we do extra matting on the sides. And this is nothing more than a door frame. Look.
Okay.
So look, the door frame was glued in.
I'm wearing mouth protection, not because it's necessary for this, but Rolf is grinding on the other side, under the plastic. We're doing this repair with a mix of epoxy hardener and silica. It's totally fine to use a polyester resin paste for this. Would be cheaper too, but since we're doing everything else with epoxy, we're doing this with epoxy too. We're just using a flexible rubber, one that you can buy at any paint store, to shape it in. In previous videos we talked about why we do all repairs with epoxy and not with polyester resin. Besides that, epoxy is a lot stronger. In the Caribbean heat, it's a lot easier to work with epoxy than with polyester resin for drying and curing times. Then with the same mix, we filled up any irregularities that were still left on the big repair, and also we put a layer of thickened epoxy on the core. Then it is time to put matting on the big repair. Again, this is a pack of 2 roving and 2 biax that was wetted under the boat. The other repairs on the inside of the boat, more in front of the boat, we did the exact same as we did that big repair here. I did not film those because it was a bit small space there, but by now you know how the repair looked like. Then it's time to cut the top of the PU foam off. It has to be cut in shape or in line with the fiberglass left and right of it, because one big mat covering the whole floor will still come over it, just like it was original. We just use a normal wood saw for this. The hairs that were on the edges of the matting are grinded away. and then we grind it with 60 over the mat again, because now the final layer of matting is coming over. So let me show you. Sand it with 60, the hairs on the side are gone, the foam is in and cut off. Gonna cut big mats. I think it's one of the last days of cutting matting. This one, after the mat is in. And Rolf is measuring matting. So matting will attach to the foam. So last step is just again filling a little bit of the tiny gaps that are still there, that there's no empty space under it, and that the mat will fully cover and attach from left to right. We add a layer of epoxy, hardener and silica. But also again, because this is foam, and like we also did with every foam repair we've done, first a layer of thickened epoxy so that it wouldn't suck up any of the normal epoxy hardener mix from the matting. Now, PU foam is a closed cell, so what we're talking about here are really minimal amounts, but when working with epoxy and matting, to have the correct mix of epoxy and hardener and to have the right amount of epoxy in the mat staying in the mat while it dries is just really important for the eventual strength the repair will have after we put the matting over it. There we go again. After roughening the matting up with sandpaper, we are now first wetting the fiberglass on the floor before putting on the big overlapping floor matting. The thing I really like about plastic boats, I mean it's fiberglass but I just call it plastic, is that once you get a bit handy with the material, you can really fix everything yourself everywhere. Also these, like the other packs we made, are 4 layers of matting on top of each other, 2 biaxial on the outside and 2 roving on the inside. And then when putting them on the floor, this pack overlaps the one we just put in. In boat life, we tend to have the idea that if something breaks, we try to replace whatever broke with something stronger. That is often the general idea of doing things. However, actually many things on a boat, if they are designed well, are designed to break in a certain order. For an example, on a catamaran, the rigging should break before the wind is able to flip the catamaran over. When you do something wrong or when something unexpected happens, the weak point that breaks should make the situation not life or death. There's a reason why this keel broke the way it broke. The boat fell off its stance and the keel was designed thinner on the edge where the keel attached to the bottom of the hull. It was actually designed to break the way it broke. And the way it was designed is that if the boat gets an impact against the keel will break, but under this floor, so that even though the keel is broken, water will still not be able to enter the boat and thus you will not sink. Then we do the same thing in the hallway in front of the bed. Newer catamarans often have flip-off keels. If they get an impact, they will just break off the boat and make almost no damage to the hull of the boat. A pretty cool design. If the keel would have been insanely strong, then there would have been 2 options. Either the boat would have had no damage, or there would have been a rip or a break in the upper hull of the boat, and that could have sunk the boat if it happened underway while hitting something. What has been grinded out has to be put back together.
Yep.
We're making a construction so that both pieces stay on the same length. We grind a straight edge around the floor frame so that it's easier with a grinder with P24 or P36 grit disc to grind that edge nicely back to the fiberglass. Because when putting the floor back in, that's where we'll put a mat. We're doing the same thing with the bathroom floor. We're using a diamond disc for this. I'm going to prepare the floors to bring them back in. So I'm going to grind all the way along the line to 0. I then continue preparing the floor of the bedroom to be put back. The floor has original non-skid on it so that you don't slip out. So I'm grinding an edge away all the way around the floor of about 1/2 inch or 1.5 centimeter. Then I turn around the floor and then clean up maybe about 1.5 inches or 5 centimeters all the way around it, taking off the gel coat. It doesn't have to be done as precise here because this is the underside of the floor. I then do the same thing with that shower floor and the shower water collection tray. Not sure what the exact name for that thing is. It is grinded out from the floor because originally we were planning to only cut that out and not the actual floor. But since we cut the whole floor out, now first that collection tray has to go back in and then the whole floor. We're going to first put some epoxy hardener silica in it, just to have the shape right, and then tomorrow we'll turn it around. Put a bit of matting around it. Put 3 layers of matting on the back all around, and it's time to go back in.
Okay, so I'm gonna put some corners in that we have some support. Then we're gonna glue the floor in. That's a good thing.
What is that? 4 plates, just as temporary support until the epoxy hardener and silica glue dries.
Kick 'em.
And this will later be filled up, epoxy and hardener and silica. We still had to grind a little hole in the floor because that is where our collection tray was. It is the lowest point of the boat and where water would go if water would come in the hull. And that is where a bilge pump was, which we'll still have to put back. So next, silica with the epoxy hardener. Also here we're adding temporary mounts for the floor of the bedroom. Then lastly, we still have to glue that floor support in that I made. And also put a mat on both sides of it. Floor is a bit brown because it used to have brown mats on top, and the glue on the bottom sticked to the white of the floor. So I need to really clean that. Clean up a little bit. That's it. Well, it's not done yet, but the floor is in again.
Trick of the trade.
We spray some 3M high strength 90 adhesive spray on below surface to stick the mat to it. That makes it a lot easier to do this nicely. Before putting this matting here, we used a file sander to sand away the old gel coat a little further until we had the width of one of these roving mats. The roving mats that's on a roll that we're putting on now. And then we're epoxying it on with a normal mix of epoxy and hardener. Then we're adding another layer of matting all around. And we'll epoxy that in. And then a third layer doing the same. We do the exact same thing in the bedroom. After drying, we then sand the area to put on fairing compound. edges of the two floors are now filled with epoxy, hardener and white micro balloons. Tomorrow sand it, it's drying now. And then paint it. And that's a mosquito in the screen. After putting a layer of fairing compound on, we let it dry and sanded it again, and it's ready to be painted. Here under the bed there was no floor, only planks where the water maker was on, which we'll put back later. The primer we're using here is Tough Stuff, the same as I'll be putting as epoxy primer next week under the waterline of the boat, which is a nice thick primer which is easy to roll on. Then we also put the first layer of primer on the repair on the other side. And primer on the door frame. And then the second layer of primer under the bed. And the second layer of primer in the hallway in front of the bed. And in the bathroom too. And of course also in the hallway under the stairs. And then a second layer on the big repair of the hull. So my boat and most other boats have a textured surface on the inside, so now we put a new floor in. It is smooth, so we're gonna add texture again there.
Now we're gonna adding some silica. Silica? Yes, silica.
This is normal silica.
And then a little bit difficult to see, I think, but it's the textures. Look at this.
We're still using Tough Stuff primer here, mixed with silica. We first put it on normally and then tap it on with a paintbrush to get the same texture as the rest of the boat has. And then we do the same thing on the repaired part of the floor in the bedroom and washroom. And then we painted the floor with all grip oyster white. If you wonder how we've gotten that brown stuff off the floor that was caused by a floor mat that used to be there, we used a wire wheel on a drill, one of those golden ones, not the silver one. The golden one is a lot less hard. The silver one will damage the non-skid of the floor. And then last, the bathroom floor, and then this repair is done. Of course, we also paint the repair on the other side. This is grip tags from All Grip. Just going over it for the grip. And that's it, guys. The repair is done. Thank you for watching and see you next week.